Hi guys. I want to talk further today about a question that I'm being asked very often, and the question is, am I able to change my natal chart or my so-called destiny, or am I confined by it, tied to it? The answer depends on the person who is asking and on their primary consciousness level. Hence, I need to introduce you to the theory of the levels of consciousness. There's 5 primary levels of consciousness, and those are: 1, the instinctual, animalistic level of consciousness, which is very deep within us, quite unconscious. It's our surviving reflex, it's our gut feeling, it's our body intelligence, and all of those non-verbal, non-mental forms that we communicate in. This level of consciousness has been the primary level of consciousness for humanity for many, many thousands of years, while we were in the Stone Age and while we were pretty much similar to animals. But then at some point, level 2 consciousness was introduced and humans started switching to that. And level 2 consciousness is the level of the mind, the level of rationality, of thinking, of talking, of reasoning, like making sense out of things. And this level is the level that humanity was primarily functioning on for the last thousands of years. And right now we are being introduced to level 3 consciousness, and a lot of humans are starting to switch to this level of consciousness as their primary function. However, to say something else about number 2, it is a level of consciousness that is very necessary for us because it allows us to make sense out of our world and to function in this world, to function in the time-space reality, to take care of our daily responsibilities and duties. So it is kind of something that differentiated us and made us advance from the animalistic state. However, if it is overdone, we can easily get very egocentric, because if we identify only with this level of consciousness and we think mind is all we are, we can get very assertive and very defensive about our opinions, about our thoughts. We can really separate ourselves very much from others and the outside world. Level 3 consciousness is the higher self and intuition, so-called. So it is a higher intelligence, much higher than the smartness of the level 2. Level 2 can be very smart and clever. It can learn a lot of things, attain a lot of information that it can reproduce. But being able to create that information, you need level 3 consciousness. It is not the same to read a book and to keep repeating what it says in there and to write a book out of your own experience and out of your own information. Level 4 consciousness is the united consciousness or collective consciousness, so-called. Other people also call it the morphogenetic field or the Akashic records. It is the field where everything is stored, all the information that has ever been, everything that has ever been thought. It is the level of existence where everything is one, where we can experience this feeling of we are all connected, we are all one, this universal truths. And this is one of the first levels where we actually could completely overcome and change our natal chart. However, it is also a level where we have such a high understanding of the objective connection between all things and how we fit into this picture that we would not want to change anything, because we would understand that our chart represents nothing more than our deepest soul desire. I've talked more about this topic in my video, Programming and Reprogramming the Mind. However, level 5 consciousness is out-of-body consciousness. So the consciousness we reach when we either die or leave our body in another way by astral traveling and so on. And that is a level of consciousness that is not really important for us because it doesn't serve us in our mission. It doesn't serve us in our mission to be here and experience the life and duality and everything on the physical level. A few things that are interesting to observe about these levels of consciousness. A human always ever functions on one level. You cannot function on different levels simultaneously. Once you attain a certain level, like for example level 3, you are able to switch down whenever you want, like change your awareness to level 2, like to the mind, or to level 1, to the body, but you can't have them all at the same time. If you're really good, you can switch within minutes, but you can't experience two levels of consciousness at the same time. And you can only ever switch down from the highest level you have achieved. Once we reach consciousness level 3 and the 3 levels of 1 body, 2 mind, and 3 higher consciousness are aligned, the mind just naturally takes its place of the servant, helping us and serving the higher mind in attaining our goals. It ceases to be the dominating force, which it is for people who function primarily in level 2 consciousness. And because you can only ever function on one level of consciousness, when you spend time with people who are on a lower state of consciousness, you naturally have to switch to their state of consciousness in order to be able to connect with them. Otherwise, you just can't communicate. So there is no communication possible between different levels of consciousness, right? So if you are, for example, on 3 and you're trying to communicate to somebody on 2, this is like how your informations are passing each other. It's just no connection point. So, you need to adjust. Even if you are a teacher, from level 3, trying to teach people on level 2, you really need to adjust your language and everything for them to understand what you're saying. And I mean no degradation here. Of course, every time you start talking about levels and something like a hierarchy, people start feeling offended because it sounds like one is better than the other, and it is not. Each of them has their place and their proper function, and we just all need to go through them in order to evolve, but we all still need to stay proficient in them. I mean, everybody would agree that the body is not stupid. Body intelligence is very important and very high, and that we are maybe now learning something about the level of the higher self doesn't mean that we can disconnect and we don't need body intelligence anymore and we don't need the mind anymore. All of those levels are very important. Another really funny thing about humans is that somehow they fail to see this process of evolution they have been going through, and how we have always constantly through evolution been introduced to new levels of consciousness, and we have become, more and more advanced. And we always tend to externalize this, right? So somebody said, I can't find the quote anymore, when the caveman heard his mind for the first time thinking, he thought it was God. And it's about the same thing that is happening right now. So a lot of people are starting to become aware of the higher self, and it's like, not this little brain that we have in our physical body, but maybe like a more vast brain that we have in our etheric body. Everybody's starting to externalize this and to, pretend like they're talking to God or the universe, instead of just realizing that they're talking to themselves. It's just, another function of ourselves. We are expanding. It becomes very interesting when you start to look at certain concepts with this theory of the levels of consciousness in your mind. For example, karma. Karma can exist on all of those levels, right? So if you have physical karma, meaning you're born with a disease or something, it means that this karma is stuck on level 1 consciousness, and you have made it in a life where you were primarily functioning in level 1 consciousness. Karma on level 2 consciousness has been made in a life where you've been primarily functioning in this consciousness, which is kind of most of humanity right now. And this karma is usually karma that we have caused due to being over identified with our mind, not feeling compassion, not thinking about other people and how our actions would influence them, being overly egoic and becoming overly defensive because we are very attached to what we think. Level 3 karma then would mainly be considering acting out of alignment with your higher purpose, knowing what your path is but not acting on it, not having integrity of what you feel is true and what you act out, and thereby disturbing the flow of the world by not being in your truth. Something else that is interesting is, falling in love also can happen on different levels. So when it becomes tricky is when, for example, you already have like a highly developed level 3 consciousness and your partner only has level 2 consciousness, and they are very much in love with you, but somehow you constantly feel like something is lacking because they are not yet able to feel love on a consciousness level that they haven't reached yet, right? So level 3 consciousness falling in love would give this feeling that we have a higher mission together, like we support each other on our paths and we have the same fundamental worldview and feelings about what is true and what is right, morals. Whereas level 2 consciousness is mainly concerned with the persona and our thoughts. Oh, we have the same interests. Oh, we look together nice as a couple. Level 1 consciousness, love, is of course physical attraction. So you need to be with somebody who has the same level of consciousness in order to have a fulfilling experience of reciprocated love. Self-confidence, also another thing that is quite interesting to observe on different levels. Level 1 self-confidence is mainly about the physical look and health. So it is confidence in our body, like how strong is our body, how able are we to perform tasks, and also of course how much do we look according to certain standards. But however nice we perceive we look on the outside, if the internal state of our body is not healthy, the level 1 confidence cannot exist. It's mainly based on our strength and also our sexual energy, like how sexual are we, how sexually desirable do we feel. This is level 1 confidence. Level 2 confidence would be confidence in our mental abilities, like how intelligent do we think we are, how sophisticated are we, how well are we able to adapt, how good are our social skills, how liked are we. This is confidence based on level 2. And level 3 confidence is based on being really firmly rooted in who you are, knowing your path, and nobody being able to kind of put you astray because you are aligned with your higher self. And you see that confidence also becomes a very tricky concept, because we can have one of them but not the others. So we can experience this fluctuations of being very confident in one situation and very insecure in another, depending on how well formed our confidence is on the different levels. So in astrology, these different levels of consciousness are connected to certain planets. Level 1 is connected to the moon, which is about our deepest unconscious instinctual feelings and emotional responses, and to Mars, which is about our physical body, about our energy, about our drive, about our sexuality. Then level 2 consciousness is connected to the energy of the sun and of Mercury. The sun as the energy of our persona, of our ego, of our wants, of the persona we project, into the world. and Mercury as the ruler of our mental activity and our communication. Level 3 consciousness is ruled by Uranus, who in and of himself represents higher truth and the higher self and connection to objective wisdom, and Jupiter, who is the ruler of expansion of the mind, of philosophy, of worldly wisdom. Level 4 consciousness is ruled by Neptune as the ruler of the boundaryless existence of unity, of unconditional love. And level 5 consciousness is ruled by Pluto, as Pluto rules death, and level 5 consciousness is about out of body. So, to tie it all back into the primary question, in order for me to be able to answer if you specifically can change your chart, we would need to see where you're at in your development. I hope this makes sense. So thank you for listening and see you soon.